Hello everyone! About a month ago, Scorchshort Toys at anymoon.com did a video review of KitzConcept's Dark Gold VF-1S. A few weeks later, KitzConcept put some red paint in the machine and knocked out another cool variant. So there are now 3 KitzConcept 1/72 scale KC collectible VF-1S toys in the wild. The line began with a Fokker release in December 2018 with an MSRP of $99 US. More Fokker toys were made available in August 2019, which is also when the Dark Gold version of the toy debuted. Initially, the Dark Gold version was only available through Hong Kong distributors, but you can now grab it on KitzConcept.hk. The third release is the Dark Red version, which started shipping in September 2019 and is exclusively available on the KitzConcept site. 600 Dark Gold toys and 200 Dark Red toys are available for $129.90 and $139.90 respectively. That price includes a t-shirt. The shirt is pretty cool looking, but if you're used to USA style sizing, do yourself a favor and order up at least one size. The Fokker, Dark Gold, and Dark Red toys are all from the same production run and only differentiated by scheme, so anything I say about one of these toys is applicable to all variants released so far. You'll see a card right now that will let you hop to the original deep dive review of the Fokker variant that got the ball rolling, and I'll stick to the 2 Dark releases in this video. If you're not shopping for one of the KitzConcept website exclusives, you can find the Fokker version of the toy and likely all future regular releases at Big Bad Toy Store. Click my campaign link in the comments below to do some shopping and show your support for this channel. These toys come in monochrome shipper boxes made of fairly sturdy cardboard. Inside, you'll find the darker retail box made of thinner cardboard with a nice matte finish. The Dark Gold and Red boxes are differentiated through color inversions. Pay no attention to some of the text on the Dark Red box. You'll also notice a big sticker on the front of the box that confirms the limited nature of the release. The numbers on the box were inflated 10% by KitzConcept as a way of giving themselves a little cushion for QC rejects. The original Fokker release had a little more flashy art, but I think I like the limited toy boxes better. Inside the box, you'll find the same contents of the original release. You won't see a pilot figure because he's already in the cockpit. The first tray contains a gun with detachable gun strap, a heat shield that you'll need to install, 4 sets of TV-style missiles, 2 intake fan covers, 3 pairs of fixed post hands, 3 cavity fillers, 1 for each side and 1 for behind the head. In a second tray, you'll find a display stand consisting of a base and an arm, as well as 5 LR626 batteries for the light-up gimmicks. There are instructions in a baggie behind the trays, and you can find a full scan of them up on anymoon.com. This toy comes with a gun. It's the same gun that came with the Fokker toy, except in darker hues. It's got a rubber gun strap that attaches on either end. Fair warning, I've had to pop mine off a few times and it has broken. So we're gonna go ahead and remove this other one because we're gonna start in fighter mode. You can see I'm gonna pull off, it's a thin piece of rubber with a big ball on the end of it. And as I pull forward, there it goes. Not hard to imagine how that broke. On the bottom of the toy, you'll notice a screw. That's where you're going to put 2 batteries, and then there's a little switch up in the front. If I push this forward, it will light up, and this little red area on the top also lights up, although you probably won't see it on camera. Now, that's cool. It's a nice effect, but on my Dark Gold version of the toy, this screw is stripped, so I can't put the batteries in there, so that's a bummer. Now, to put this on in fighter mode, we're going to go ahead and collapse that area there. Unfortunately, this is not perfect transformation, so we're going to remove the handle, kind of like we would on a high metal toy. Then we're going to take our fighter mode vehicle. We can bring the arms up because the arms don't peg into anything, and then just split them apart. Put the handle in. This is pretty familiar territory. Pinch it together as tight as you can. Pinch these arms together as tight as you can, and then push them back down. Now you should be able to get it tighter than that. So let's try again. Okay, so push that together. Bring the arms back down. The problem now is that the switch for the gun is tucked up underneath with the shoulders and not accessible, so it's going to be either on when you put it on or it'll be off. You can't really fly the toy around pew-pewing at people, which is, I think, part of the fun of a light-up gimmick. Another cool feature of this toy is the landing gear. So it's got the 3-door integrated landing gear, and you have spinning wheels, although the front wheels don't spin as well as the back wheels. No rubber tires, but they look good enough. Unfortunately, when the gun is installed, if we put this toy down it is going to sit right on top of that gun. Now, all landing gear should be able to touch the ground as well, so at least it's got that going for it. But still, a bit of a bummer there isn't a little bit more clearance there. So you're bummed about the toy sitting on the gun with the landing gear out, so you want to put it on the display stand. Fortunately, the display stand that comes with the dark versions of the toy is clear instead of neon green like it was with the Fokker toy. So that's a plus. Unfortunately, the display stand is pretty weak otherwise. It pinches on front and back in sort of the most awkward possible ways. Like you can see, it's just kind of futzing around a little bit. This one, I've got it tucked on a bit tighter, but the result is it's pushing the nose cone forward. So you can probably see a little gap behind the canopy there. So super awkward. You do have 2 points of articulation. You can spin it around at the base and you can go up and down with it. Now be careful, it's a really tight fit, and my Fokker version already has a crack down here on the bottom of it from being pressed in and then probably twisted. So you get a display stand, it only works in fighter mode and it's not good. You do get TV style missiles, and depending on which dark version you got, the trim will match, and they're cast in black plastic, so you don't have that problem that we had with the Fokker toy where they were a white that really didn't match up with anything. So that was a bit of a put off. Unfortunately, KitzConcept still hasn't fixed the issue where when you install these missiles, if you go to remove them, it just rips the hard point right out. So I very much recommend you either don't use these missiles at all, or you either make the hole that these things go into a little tighter. Probably not the way to go. Maybe file down the pinching that the missile does. Either way, don't just throw these on your toy and expect to pull them off without some damage. The nose cone is a sheath, so what we could do is just pull this forward and expose the area where you're going to plug in the batteries. So we're going to take this screw out here, 2 batteries go inside. The toy comes with 5. That's going to leave you with 1 extra one after you put them in the gun as well. You have the switch on top here. We can turn that switch on and you can see a blue light in the canopy. It's actually pretty bright inside that cockpit, although my lights are going to wash it out entirely. There's also a red light that comes through on the side. On my dark gold version, battery bay is stripped. Can't put the batteries in, so that's 2 light up gimmicks that don't work on my dark gold version. Now, if you look at the cockpit here, you'll see there's the little KitzConcept name. Really, really solid paintwork here. We do have an opening canopy. On my Fokker toy, this canopy opens incredibly easily, but it's nice and tight on both my dark gold versions. The pilot figure, the same for both dark gold versions. And you can see really nice paint work. I don't know where the neon green seat comes from, but nice paint along the edges. And you have that clear bay up front that's letting the light come in. So really nice cockpits and features in that regard. But we're once again left with a switch that once we put the sheath back on, we have no access to. Now, it bothers me less with the cockpit because you're not going to be flicking it on and off like you might a gun. But it certainly would be nicer if it was more accessible. So we've covered the larger issues. The more minor issues with this toy in fighter mode, the leg seems to angle upwards as it gets to the back, and then you have a really fat foot. It'd be nicer if that tapered down, and if it did taper down, it would kind of conceal the angled upward leg a little bit more. From a staying together standpoint, the toy does a pretty good job there. Minor weakness, this hip intake, both of them kind of pop out a little too frequently. There's a lot of work there that KitzConcept did to make it so that wouldn't happen, but they need to work on their production tolerances to make everything work as it's supposed to. In the back, the legs peg into the vertical stabilizers, the backpack, so that's all good. One other issue, not a problem on my dark gold or red toys, but the nose cone can slide too freely. It certainly does on my Fokker toy, and if it does there, it's bound to happen to some other people that are purchasing this. There is one paint issue that's a little peculiar. There's all these nice tampo marks on the wings, and I think this is pretty much limited to the wings, but on my dark gold version, there's a film over all those tampos on the wings. That just raises them up off the surface a little bit and looks a little bit awkward. So that's a bit of a bummer. Now overall, I find the paint schemes, both of these paint schemes, just to be gorgeous. I think it was a good move on KitzConcept's part to go ahead and swap the gold out with the red and release another variant. I think in both instances, it works great for different reasons. Now we do have that gold, or the silver, I should say, panel lines on top. I think those look great. And obviously the tampo print job throughout the toy, all of the details, really excellent paint scheme and paint job on these toys. This toy doesn't do Guardian mode particularly well, although the schemes look great. Still no problems there. Backpack sits a little high on the back. It doesn't lay as flush to the back as it should. And you get the vertical stabilizers have a lot of slop to them, so they're very easily knocked askewed. The hip intakes don't do the best job locking into position, so that can be pretty frustrating. And then from an articulation standpoint, the wings sit right on top of the shoulders. So you have a few options. You could probably angle the shoulders forward, which I think is the most natural solution here. You could sweep the wings further back and then have the shoulders upright. So you could see kind of how bad the conflict is there. Or you can bring the wings forward with the shoulders up, and it's going to kind of force the shoulders down. It's a pretty awkward situation to be in. That reduces your shoulder mobility. It's going to lock the shoulder kind of into place, but you could still move the arms and the elbows. So you could still do some poses if you had the toy in a position like that. But clearly, Guardian mode, not a strength. This toy comes with integrated articulated hands, and they have a wrist. They're on a peg, so they spin around. You have a thumb, a trigger finger, and then the 3 bottom fingers as separate points of articulation. You'll also see that there is a peg in the palm which receives a slot on the trigger, so it holds the gun pretty firmly. You also get these fixed posed hands, which do a good job holding that grip as well. They just pop right into the toy. They have some nice panel lining to them. They're beefy. And when they're on the toy, they can be repositioned pretty easily and work very well. I think they add a nice visual boost, so I recommend them. Check out my separate transformation guide to see what the KitzConcept toys have in common with both Bandai's High Metal and Arcadia's 160 VF-1 line of toys. Now I've gone ahead and installed all of the optional cavity fillers. So we've got this neck cover in the back. We've got these covers on the side. They are optional, but these side covers do lock into the arm area, which helps hold everything together, especially as you start twisting this shoulder joint. It keeps that hinge from moving around. So I'm not normally a huge fan of optional non-perfect transformation parts, but in this case, that really does help, so I recommend it. The backpack sits up a little high, still angles back a little bit. And the only handling annoyance that I have is that the chest doesn't really lock into place. It's a little stiff on my dark red version, so it's not so bad. On my white one, it moves pretty freely here, my Fokker toy. You learn just not to bump it as you handle it, and it ends up being not that big a deal. While we have both of these toys out, just take a close look at the dark version markings versus the original release. And you could see there's a warning on the front here on the air brake that's not on the dark version. But the dark version does have a mark down here by the rear landing gear door that is not on this toy. So overall, markings really superb on both of these toys. Not exactly the same, but you will not get the impression that KitzConcept skimped on their dark version at all, despite the fact that we're working with a black toy and you might think some of those markings wouldn't carry over well. They've done a really good job. Articulation on this toy is really solid, so if you like the paint scheme, you want to get it into a nice pose, it's going to work with you to make that happen. You got a ball jointed head. You can move the lasers on that head independently, up, down, left, right, cock, left, right, all good stuff there. Shoulder, you can spin all the way around at, and you can come out away from the body. There's that twist point right below the shoulder, and super good double jointed elbow. You've seen the hands and the ball joint and the articulated hands. Then moving down, you don't have a waist, but you do have the ability to rock. There's a ball joint there. You're gonna run into the wings pretty quickly, but you do have the Garwalk joint to save you if you do, or you can open the wings up and come way up, way back. And you also have the ability to pivot outward. If you bring the legs forward a little bit, they won't run into the nose cone as much. And then you can come out even further, which is great. You have a twist point at the knee. The knee itself, fairly limited. There is an extension there, but it's very minor. Gets you to about 90 degrees. The feet do have an extension to them, and they come back and forward. Not much on the right-left action, but they're not really going to inhibit your fun. You're going to be able to pose this toy lots of great ways and take advantage of that sweet paint scheme with some sweet poses. I really like these dark schemes. I like them more than any dark scheme we've seen on a toy before, so I bought these toys because they're pretty. These toys would be a lot easier for me to recommend to others with the following improvements. The missiles should be removable without ripping off the hardpoint. The gun should stow less awkwardly in fighter. Maybe KitzConcept could throw in a slightly smaller fighter mode only gun. The hips/intakes should attach more firmly in fighter and guardian modes. And for bonus points, KitzConcept should junk the display stand and just try again. Hopefully you're now informed enough to decide if the sexiness of this scheme makes it worth overlooking these early version issues. If you want more, subscribe and check out the full article on anymoon.com. If you're feeling more informed, hit that like button. Thanks for watching.